Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, we're almost supposedly at our limit, but, you know, I'm going to ignore it. We're in New Orleans. And I'm going to ask each of them to answer one question for me, and we'll go down the road, because, as you know, the APHA wants to really lead an effort to become the healthiest nation, and we would like to do that in a generation. So I'm going to ask each of them if they'd be kind enough to, if they could do one thing to give us advice as the intellectual capital of public health in the United States. What can we do to try to achieve that goal? And Dr. Luznak, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, once again, I'll go back to sort of this experience of this year, and specifically looking at the 50th anniversary, right? 480,000 Americans each and every year are dying from smoking-related diseases. My sense is it's time, you know, it's time to stop this mess, right? And in reality, you know, when we released the report, I actually spent a little time channeling C. Everett Koop. And 25 years ago, he, in fact, used the same words that we had used at the release, which is, when it comes to tobacco use in this country, when it comes to the abuse of the industry, when it comes to the lies, the deceit that have been put on the American public, that really we as public health leaders have to say enough is enough. You know, it's done, and we have to start the end game strategy on that. So that's my contribution to your path forward.
Dr. Regina Benjamin.
I don't know, I was going to talk about tobacco, but you're a good student. and Dr. Satcher was my professor, so he taught me. So everything about community health, I thought everybody knew public health growing up in medical school, but they didn't, but it's because he was my professor. I have to think about the fact that we need to make sure for me, I'm a family physician, so I talk about patients. I even talk about the American people as my 300 million Americans as my patients. But give them a voice. Give them the ability to have their own voice. Give them the knowledge. Don't underestimate the fact that they can make good decisions. If we give them the information, we can give it to them in a way that they understand it, that the way that they need it. We tend to talk sometimes to get our science and validity out there, but in a way they understand it, and that they can advocate for themselves, and we can advocate for them. But be a voice for those who can't, because there are those who can't. The vulnerable and the most needy need us to be their voice. But there are those who can, and I just think that we have an opportunity to train next generations to understand that, to not get discouraged. There's so much misinformation out there, so much bad information, and people take advantage of the lack of knowledge to instill fear, and that fear makes decisions. We need to give them information and know that there's a group of people, particularly those interested in public health, who have the science and the information there to give them things that they can trust. Because trust is the biggest thing that we're missing right now in everything, is just be a trusted voice for the American people.
Dr. Steve Galston.
I think similar to what I said about when I was out there as the Surgeon General, feeling like I was filling a leadership void, I think as an organization, APHA could fill a leadership void in terms of what the nonprofit world is doing for public health. The country is very, very divided. And I think having APHA lead a national public health agenda that is truly bipartisan. There's a lot of stuff that you won't be able to get on there because it's too divisive. But there's an enormous amount, a lot more actually, that could be done in a bipartisan way. And I think leading an agenda of having the major groups in public health figure out what they want to do for the next 5 years and then march through and do it would be a great addition.
Thank you. Dr. David Satcher.
I would push for full funding of the prevention agenda and the social determinants of health. See, Since Regina called me her professor, I'm stealing from my student. She's the one that put together the prevention agenda, but I think the answers are there. I think if we could get full funding of the prevention agenda, integrating the social determinants of health, health in all policy, I think we could become the healthiest country in the world.
Dr. Joyce Nelson.
Well, ignorance is not bliss. And I believe in education, education, education. I feel that public health could go out and begin to lead this. You can't start teaching it. You can't teach a 45-year-old man who's had a coronary how to change his diet. You need to start at birth, in kindergarten. We need to start early. So we've got to have comprehensive health education in our schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I think that public health could lead this. And not just, and we need to involve business. We need to make sure we involve schools, churches, or everybody has a role. You need to be the transformational leader, but everybody has a role. And I think the only way we're going to have a healthy population, healthy communities, is we've got to educate them on how to be healthy.
And of course, Dr. Antonio Novello.
I have a few advice and some worries. The biggest advice, I think prevention cannot work unless you understand the culture of the people. And one case in point is, could you please tell me how can you tell a mother that their baby is fat? You must understand the culture of the people before you use the language to be able to do your data accommodation rather than the life's realities. So culture is extremely important. The second thing that I think is important, I remember when I was health commissioner of the state of New York and September 11 happened. When it happened, I sent every psychologist, every psychiatrist out to be able to help the people for their depression. And when the budget came at the end of the month, cardiac was up, depression was flat. And I asked, what seems to be the problem? Well, the problem is that when minorities go to the emergency room to say they have anxiety, they have depression, they say, I have a pain in my heart. So they did an EKG. So culture is extremely important if you want to take a message. But at this moment, I'm a little bit worried about those 37 only states that have increased the Medicaid coverage. And I think the message has to be changed. We can no longer say, I want you to have the poor on Medicaid. I want the working poor to speak strongly and tell them, I might be poor, but I vote for you, and I will remember that when the moment comes. I'm also concerned about the subsidies and what is going to go in the court right now. If the subsidies disappear, the insurance companies of the United States will go kaput, and then the ones that are insured will have difficulties. I'm worried about the subsidies. But I'm more aware and more concerned about the companies that have dropped their hours to 30 so that they cannot pay my insurance. They have to be accountable.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, every now and then our nation has this fascinating discussion about whether or not we need to have a top doc. All I can tell you is that from my position here at APHA, I think the answer is clear. So I think as we go forward today, we can recognize that we do have leaders. We have very strong leaders. And even though the budget is only about $1 million, speaking truth to power, using the bullet pulpit, since the beginning of the Commission Corps and the Office of the Surgeon General, we've been able to make a profound impact on the health of Americans. Give it up for the nation's top doctors, the Surgeon General of the United States.
Which way? This way?